Catherine, I took out a loan for my mom under your name. So go to the bank and pay it off from your salary. I'm not working. I can't pay it myself, my husband said. But I, tired of supporting this whole family, quickly dealt with this, and many other problems as well. But before I begin, please like and subscribe to the channel. And we'd love to hear which part of the world are you joining us from. Let us know. Now, let's dive into today's story. The phone rang at 7 a.m. while I was finishing my mascara. The screen lit up with the bank's name, and my heart skipped a beat. Catherine Melnikov speaking. This is the credit department calling. We're reminding you that your first loan payment of $27,400 is due in 3 days. I froze with the mascara wand in my hand. Excuse me, what loan? A personal loan for $300,000, taken out 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I was at work. I've never taken out any loans. There must be a mistake, I said, feeling my fingers go numb. I didn't take out any loan. We have a contract with your signature and a copy of your ID. The money was received in cash. If you have questions, please visit our branch. The line went dead. Katie, came my husband's voice from the bedroom. You still home? I slowly walked out of the bathroom. Eric lay on the couch in the same position as yesterday, on his back with a laptop on his stomach, unshaven, wearing a stretched-out t-shirt. My husband, my cross to bear, Eric. My voice sounded unexpectedly calm. The bank just called, about a loan for $300,000. He didn't even flinch, just set aside the laptop and stretched. Oh, yeah, I was going to tell you about that. Was going to tell me. 2 weeks ago someone took out a loan in my name, and he was going to tell me, Katie, I took out a loan in your name for Mom. Just stop by the bank and make the payment from your paycheck. I'm not working, so I can't pay. He said it as casually as if he'd asked me to buy bread. You took out a loan in my name? For $300,000. Yeah, Mom needed it urgently for roof repairs. She asked. I couldn't say no. How could you take out a loan in my name without me? He shrugged. I had power of attorney. Remember when you signed documents when we sold the car? That power of attorney was included. I remembered. 6 months ago, we'd sold my old car. Eric brought a folder of papers. I signed without looking. Idiot. So, stop by the bank. Eric reached for his laptop. And call Mom. She wanted something. I silently grabbed my purse and left. The door closed behind me, and I stood on the landing for several seconds, staring at the peeling paint on the walls. This house, this apartment, I'd been paying it off for 7 years, economizing on everything. And he lies on the couch telling me he took out a loan in my name like it's the most ordinary thing in the world. In the elevator, I was shaking, not from fear, from rage. 7 years. 7 years I'd carried this family. Worked while Eric found himself. Paid the mortgage while he painted pictures nobody bought. Helped his mother, who looked at me like I was the maid. And now they'd hung $300,000 around my neck. On the way to the bank, I replayed our history. How we met 8 years ago. He was reading poetry at a cafe, so romantic, talking about high art, about how money was vulgar. 24-year-old me was charmed. We had a modest wedding. Eric said we should spend the money on his art supplies instead. His mother, Patricia, showed up in an expensive dress and complained about her health all evening. The first year, Eric still worked. Then he quit because his boss didn't appreciate his talent. The second year, he wrote a novel. The third year, he learned guitar. Fourth, fifth, sixth, I lost count of his projects. All that time I worked, got promoted, paid off the mortgage on our apartment, the one bought with my savings. Eric was convinced it was ours, and his mother called every week with complaints. Blood pressure, heart problems, money for medicine, groceries, repairs. Her pension was decent, by the way, it went who knows where. Every month I transferred her $1,500 to $2,000. Eric would say she's my mother, Katie. She's alone and sick. How can we say no? I never said no. I never said no to anyone. That was my problem. At the bank, I requested a statement and copy of the contract. I looked at the signature, similar to mine, but not mine. I have a distinctive tail at the end. This one didn't have it. This is a forgery, I told the clerk. I didn't sign this contract. In that case, you need to contact our fraud department and the police. Tell me who received the money. The woman looked at her computer. By power of attorney, Eric Melnikov. Your husband. For now, yes, I replied. I didn't go to the fraud department. Not yet. I needed to think. At work, I locked myself in my office and opened online banking. The joint account where I'd been saving showed a balance of $2,300. A year ago, there had been over $50,000. My savings. I requested a statement. Cash withdrawal, $5,000. Another $3,000. Transfers to digital wallets. $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. Month after month. $500,000. My husband had drained $500,000 in a year. Katie, you okay? Marina stood in the doorway, my colleague, a lawyer, and my only close friend. Come in. Close the door. I told her everything about the loan, the forged signature, the missing money. Forgery, that's a federal crime, Marina said. Wire fraud, identity theft. And if he obtained money through fraud, that's another felony. Up to 20 years depending on the amount. So he could go to prison. If you can prove the forgery, you'll need an expert analysis. That evening I came home as usual. Made dinner. Eric ate without looking up from his phone. Were you at the bank? Yes. And I'll handle it. By the way, what did Mom want? Call her yourself. After dinner, I called my mother-in-law. Katie, finally. I need some groceries brought over. And I need medicine. Okay. By the way, how's the roof repair going? A pause. What repair? Eric said the roof was leaking. Oh, that. Yes, it's leaking. But it's tolerable for now. The roof can wait. Of course it can. That night, while Eric slept, I took his phone. The passcode, I knew it. He didn't hide it. I opened his banking apps. There were 3. The first was empty. The second showed negative $4,000. The third account was linked to an online casino. My husband gambled at online casinos. I scrolled through the transaction history, and with each line I felt sicker. Deposit $2,000. Withdrawal $300. Deposit $5,000. Withdrawal 0. Deposit $3,000. Withdrawal 0 again. He lost over and over, but kept playing, hoping to win it back. In 1 year, Eric had gambled away $48,000. My money, the same money I'd been saving for a rainy day, for vacation, for some better life. My hands trembled as I took screenshots. Then I opened his messages with his mother. Mom, I sent it. Check. Got it. Going to look tomorrow. I scrolled up. Mom, Katie doesn't suspect anything. Naive idiot. Just don't make waves. Let her think it's for the roof. I found a car. Just $30,000. Perfect. A car. My mother-in-law was going to buy a car with money from my loan. I sat in the dark, looking at my sleeping husband. 7 years I'd been a good wife, and they thought I was an idiot, a walking ATM. But they didn't know one thing. A year ago, my grandmother died. She left me an apartment in a small town. I hadn't told anyone, quietly handled the inheritance. I had a place to go. I had evidence. And now I had a plan. The next week, I ordered a handwriting analysis. The expert said, obvious forgery. Report ready in a week. I called my contacts at the IRS to check if my mother-in-law had registered any assets. The answer came 2 days later. Patricia Melnikov had registered a foreign car for $28,000 2 weeks ago, 3 days after Eric received the loan. Everything fit. On Saturday, I drove to my mother-in-law's with groceries. In the driveway sat a new car, a silver sedan. New car. I asked. Got it on credit. My old clunker died. On credit, of course. I went upstairs and examined the ceilings. No leaks. Dry and clean. The roof story was a lie. As I was leaving, my mother-in-law hugged me tight. Thank you, Katie. You're gold. A gold mine. At home, Eric was watching football. How's Mom? Good. Did she show you the car? Yeah. Good for her. Good for her. With my money. A few days later, Marina called me to lunch. She dug through her channels. Your mother-in-law receives disability benefits. Supplemental security income. I nearly choked. What disability? She's healthy. I've seen her carry 50-pound bags of potatoes. Exactly. Disability was approved 5 years ago. Diagnosis: spinal problems. She carries heavy bags. That's fraud. Up to 20 years, depending on the amount. My mother-in-law. Sweet, sickly Patricia. 5 years receiving disability payments for a condition she doesn't have. How do I prove she's healthy? Video of her doing things impossible with her diagnosis. The next Saturday, I drove over with a camera in my pocket. Patricia was unloading her trunk. Crates of vegetables, bags of apples. The 58-year-old disabled woman easily lifted 40 pounds. Bending, squatting, no signs of pain. Then we had tea. Oh, Katie, my back is killing me. I can barely walk. I nodded. The camera recorded. At home, Eric was nervous, tapping his foot, checking his phone. That night, I checked his messages. Bro, can you lend me $30,000 by Friday? I'll pay back with interest. Eric, you already owe me $20,000. I scrolled further. More debts. $20,000 to one person, $15,000 to another, $10,000 to a third. Eric owed friends $40,000, besides the loan, besides the casino. Total, $300,000 loan, $50,000 stolen from the account, $40,000 in debts, $390,000. How does a person fall this far? Eric, who read poetry, who talked about contempt for money. Now he was stealing from his wife and gambling it away in casinos. And his mother had been defrauding the government for 5 years, receiving disability for an illness she didn't have, while looking me in the eye and complaining about her health. Nice family. And for 7 years I'd been part of it, but not anymore. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what a fool I'd been all these years, believing every word, giving away money, time, energy. They laughed behind my back, but now everything would change. That night I made a decision. Not just divorce, not just leaving. I would make them pay for everything. Not out of revenge, though that too. Out of justice. They'd stolen years of my life, my money, my faith in people. Now it was my turn to take back what was mine. I pulled out a notebook and wrote a plan, point by point, like a good accountant. Carefully, methodically. Point 1, gather all evidence. Forged signature, check. Casino gambling, check. Mother-in-law's car purchase, check. Fraudulent disability, check. Husband's debts, check. Point 2, consult with a lawyer about asset division. The apartment was bought during the marriage, but with my money. If I can prove it, the apartment stays with me. Point 3, prepare an exit strategy. Grandmother's apartment is ready. Open a new account at a different bank. Save emergency money. Point 4, strike simultaneously on all fronts so they can't recover. For the first time in 7 years, I felt strong. Not a victim, a hunter. Not a stupid chicken to be plucked, but a predator waiting for the moment to attack. They thought I'd endure forever, that I was a doormat to be used and discarded. That an accountant is just a gray mouse who only knows how to count other people's money. They were wrong. I'm an accountant. And yes, I know how to count. I count every penny, every dollar, every year spent on these people. and I've already calculated how much they owe me. Now I just need to collect that debt with interest. Outside, dawn was breaking. A new day was beginning. A new life. After that sleepless night, I became a different person. Outwardly, still the same Katie. Making breakfast, smiling at my husband, calling my mother-in-law. But inside, cold calculation. First, I opened an account at a different bank. Under my maiden name, Miller. I'd changed my passport after the wedding, but my maiden name remained in the documents as my previous name. I started transferring part of my salary there, $500 to $700, so Eric wouldn't notice. Then I contacted a notary in my grandmother's town. I needed to make sure the apartment was properly registered. Ms. Miller, the notary said, inheritance received during marriage is the personal property of the heir. Your spouse has no rights to this apartment. Perfect. So I had somewhere to go. The signature analysis was ready in a week. Official conclusion. The signature on the loan agreement was not executed by Catherine Melnikov, but by another person. Shows signs of signature imitation. I hid the report in my office safe. This was my ace. Marina helped me understand the legal nuances. Listen, she said over lunch one day, your apartment was bought during the marriage, right? Right. But the down payment was mine, and I paid the mortgage alone. Do you have proof? Every statement, every payment from my account. Eric didn't contribute a penny. Marina nodded. Then you can try to prove the apartment is your separate property, not marital. It's difficult, but doable, especially if you have documentation of where the down payment came from. The $30,000 down payment, I'd saved that before the wedding. Worked since I was 18, saved up. I still had the statement from my old account. One more thing, Marina continued. You say your husband gambled away $50,000 and racked up debts. You can use that. Under the law, if one spouse wastes marital funds on gambling without the other's consent, it's grounds for unequal division of assets. I wrote everything in my notebook, so I could get more than half. You can try. Courts consider spousal conduct. If you prove he squandered family funds, your chances are good. At home, I continued playing the role of the dutiful wife. It was hard to look at Eric knowing he was a thief and a liar, but I managed. Accountants know how to keep a poker face. Eric suspected nothing. He even cheered up, apparently deciding the loan issue had been forgotten. One evening he said, Katie, I've been thinking maybe we should buy a car? You've wanted one for a while. I almost laughed. A car? With what money? The money he'd gambled away? We'll think about it, I said calmly. And Mom asked for help with some house documents. Something about taxes. What documents? Not sure exactly. She'll explain. 2 days later, Patricia called. Katie, come by Saturday. We need to discuss something important. On Saturday, I drove to my mother-in-law's. She met me at the door, energetic and rosy-cheeked. No trace of the illnesses she constantly complained about. Come in, come in. Want some tea? We sat in the kitchen. Patricia pulled out a folder of documents. Look, I want to transfer the house. In what sense? Well, it's in my name, and I'm not getting any younger. Who knows what could happen? I want to put it in Eric's name. I took the documents. A solid brick house with half an acre of land. At current prices, at least $500,000 to $600,000. What do you want from me? You're an accountant, my mother-in-law smiled. Figure out the paperwork. And also, she lowered her voice, I need a loan, using the house as collateral. I went cold. A loan. Why? What do you mean, why? Repairs are needed. I want to help Eric. He has an important project. A project? Eric's projects are like fish and bicycles. How much? $100,000. $100,000. Using the house as collateral. I was beginning to understand the scheme. Who'll be taking out the loan? Eric, of course. Once he's the owner. There it was. My mother-in-law wanted to transfer the house to her son, then take out a loan against it. If Eric couldn't pay, and he definitely couldn't, the bank would take the house. But by then, Patricia would have the money. She was going to set up her own son. I need to think about this, I said. It's a serious matter. Of course, think. But not too long. I've already checked with the bank. They have good terms. I drove home in turmoil. My mother-in-law was even worse than I'd thought. She wasn't just using me. She was willing to destroy her own son for money. That evening, I told Marina. That's called loan fraud, she said. If she obtains money knowing she can't repay it, that's wire fraud. Plus, if it turns out she deliberately transferred assets to avoid collection. Basically, your mother-in-law is digging her own grave. What should I do? Nothing yet. Watch. Gather information. The more evidence you have, the better. I started watching. Eric went out more often in the evenings. To friends, he'd say. He'd return late, sometimes after midnight. I didn't ask. Pretended I didn't care. One day I decided to follow him. He left the house around 8. I waited a minute and followed. He got on a bus. I took the next one. He got off downtown near a shopping center. I kept my distance. Eric went into a cafe. Through the window, I saw him sit at a table where a woman was already waiting. Young, about 25, bleached blonde with bright lips. They hugged. Not like friends, like lovers. I took out my phone and snapped several photos. Then more when they kissed. And more when they left the cafe holding hands. Infidelity. Another item for my list. I didn't feel pain. Maybe I would have before. But now, after everything I'd learned, this was just another line in a long list of his betrayals. At home, I tracked down the woman on social media. Laura Voronova, 24. Works as a sales clerk at a clothing store. Judging by her photos, she loves expensive things and the good life. I wondered what Eric had promised her. That he's a talented artist who'll soon be recognized? That his wife doesn't understand him? Classic. The next day, I checked his phone again. The messages with Laura were in a separate chat under the name Steve. Baby, when are you finally leaving her? Soon, sunshine. I need to sort out some things. You've been saying that for 6 months. I'm tired of waiting. Be patient. Soon I'll have money and we'll start a new life. Money? Where was he planning to get money? From his mother. From that loan, using the house as collateral. I scrolled further. Mom promised to help. We'll sell some things. I'll be able to leave. What about your wife? She won't object. Who's asking her? She's stupid, won't understand anything. Stupid. I'm stupid. I took screenshots, added them to the folder. The next 2 weeks, I lived like I was sitting on a powder keg. On one hand, I needed to wait for my mother-in-law to finalize all the house documents. On the other, I was afraid they'd complete their scheme before I could strike. Marina helped me compile a timeline of events. It was impressive. Forged signature on loan agreement. Federal crime theft from joint account. Grounds for unequal division gambling addiction. Aggravating circumstance infidelity. Grounds for at-fault divorce fraudulent disability. Separate criminal case plan mortgage fraud can be prevented. You know what? Marina said, you need a good lawyer. Not just an attorney, but specifically a family law specialist. I know someone, Victoria Summers. She specializes in complex divorces. I met with Victoria Summers 2 days later. She turned out to be a woman in her 50s, stern, with short hair and an attentive gaze. I told her everything. Showed her documents, statements, screenshots, photos, the expert's report. She flipped through the papers, silently. Then she said, Catherine, you have a ready-made criminal case here. Several, actually. The question is, what do you want? Justice. Justice is a flexible concept. Let's be specific. Do you want to put your husband in prison, get your money back, keep the apartment? I thought, the apartment for sure. That's my home. I paid for it. The money? I probably can't get it back. He has nothing, but I want him to answer for what he did. And his mother, too. Good. Then here's what we'll do. For the next hour, we discussed strategy. Victoria explained the action plan. First, file a police report about the forged signature. That would launch a criminal investigation against Eric. Second, simultaneously file for divorce with asset division. Present the court with evidence of squandered marital funds and infidelity. Third, notify the bank about the planned mortgage fraud. That would block the loan. Fourth, file a report with the Social Security Administration about the fraudulent disability. Let them investigate. The key, the lawyer said, is to do everything simultaneously so they can't react. I nodded. That was exactly what I'd planned. And one more piece of advice, she added. Before filing, move out of the apartment. You said you have a place. Yes, my grandmother's apartment. Perfect. Move there. Take all important documents and valuables. When your husband learns about the police report, he might behave unpredictably. She was right. I didn't know what Eric was capable of if cornered. The next week I prepared. Secretly took things from the house, a little at a time so he wouldn't notice. Documents, photos, some clothes. I brought them to Marina's. She stored them for me. I didn't touch the money in the new account. There was already about $5,000 accumulated. Enough to start. I drove to grandmother's apartment one weekend. Told Eric I was visiting a friend in another city. He didn't object, he didn't care. The apartment was small but cozy. 2 rooms, a kitchen, a balcony. Grandmother had died a year ago, but her things still stood on the shelves. I walked through the rooms, touching book spines, little vases, doilies. Thank you, Grandma, I said aloud. You saved me. If not for this inheritance, where would I go? The street. I cleaned up, aired it out, made the bed. Now I had a refuge. All that remained was to wait for the right moment. The moment came 10 days later. Eric came home in a good mood that evening. He was rarely in a good mood, so I became alert. Katie, he shouted from the doorway. Great news! What happened? Mom finalized everything. The house is in my name now, and tomorrow we're going to the bank for the loan. I went cold. They'd actually done it. Tomorrow. Yeah, we already have an appointment. $100,000 against the house. Can you imagine? He was like a child promised a present. Didn't understand that his mother was setting him up. Eric, I said carefully, are you sure that's a good idea? A loan is a responsibility. If you can't pay, don't worry. Mom will help. And anyway, it's temporary. My project will take off soon, and I'll pay everything back. A project? What project? Another fantasy. But I didn't argue. Just said, okay, whatever you say. That night, while Eric slept, I called Victoria. They're going to the bank tomorrow to get the loan. Understood. I'll contact the bank's fraud department in the morning. Warn them about possible fraud. That'll delay disbursement. And the police report? File the day after tomorrow. Everything according to plan. I hung up and looked at my sleeping husband. Tomorrow, everything changes. In the morning, Eric left for his mother's. I stayed home, saying I felt unwell. As soon as the door closed behind him, I began. I gathered the remaining things, documents, everything I hadn't yet moved. My laptop, jewelry from my grandmother, not from Eric. Keys to my car, which I'd bought 6 months ago with my bonus. I looked around the apartment one last time. 7 years of life. 7 years wasted. No, not wasted. I gained experience. Learned to recognize lies. Learned to be strong. I left, locked the door, and dropped the keys in the mailbox. I wasn't coming back. That evening, Eric called. His voice sounded strange, frightened. Katie, where are you? On a business trip, I lied. Why? At the bank. They denied us the loan. Said something about an investigation, suspected fraud. What's going on? I don't know, Eric. Maybe they have their reasons. And one more thing, he stammered. The police called me, asked me to come in tomorrow. Something about some loan. It started, I thought. You'll sort it out, I said. I have to go. We'll talk later. I pressed end call, sat in grandmother's apartment looking at the phone in my hand. Tomorrow I'd file for divorce. Tomorrow Eric would learn that his wife isn't a stupid sheep to be fleeced. Tomorrow the reckoning begins. I smiled. I'd been waiting for this moment for 7 years without knowing it, but now I was ready. The next morning started with a trip to the police station. I sat in Detective Peterson's office, a middle-aged man with a tired face and attentive eyes. My folder of documents lay before him. So, Ms. Melnikov, you're claiming your spouse took out a loan in your name by forging your signature? Yes. Here's the handwriting analysis report. The signature on the contract wasn't executed by me. The detective took the paper, read the analysis carefully. You ordered this yourself? Yes, but I'm willing to undergo official testing. That will be necessary. He made a note in his pad. What else? I pulled out account statements. My husband withdrew over $50,000 from our joint account in the last year. Without my knowledge, the money went to online gambling. Here are screenshots from his casino account and transaction history. The detective raised an eyebrow. You had access to his phone. We're married, lived in the same apartment. He didn't hide his passcode. Peterson nodded, wrote something else. All right, we'll open an investigation for identity theft and wire fraud. Your husband will be called in for questioning. He already got a notice, I said. They called him yesterday. I know. That's for a different matter. The bank filed a report about a suspicious transaction. Now, there'll be 2 investigations. The detective looked at me. You understand your husband could face serious prison time? I understand. And you're willing to testify against him? I am. He was silent for a moment. You know, Ms. Melnikov, in 20 years on the job, I've seen a lot of family dramas. But this level of comprehensive preparation is a first. You've thought this through very well. I didn't respond, just looked at him calmly. All right, he finally said. I'll accept your complaint. We'll investigate. From the police station, I went to the courthouse to file for divorce. Victoria Summers was waiting for me at the entrance. All set. Yes. The police accepted the report, opened an investigation. Excellent. Let's go. We filed the divorce petition with the family court. Attached to it were demands for asset division and evidence, mortgage statements, confirmation of the down payment from my premarital account, documents about squandered family funds. The hearing will be in about 6 weeks, the lawyer said. But right now we can file a motion for a freeze on asset transfers, so he can't sell or transfer the apartment. Can he do that? Theoretically, yes. The apartment is in both your names. But with a freeze, he won't be able to. We filed the motion. The court would review it within a week. By evening, I was exhausted but satisfied. The mechanism was in motion. Now all that remained was to wait. Eric called all day. I didn't answer. Then a message came. Katie, where are you? What's going on? I'm being called to the police station. Why aren't you answering? I didn't reply. The next message came an hour later. They told me you filed a report against me. Is that true, Katie? This must be some mistake. A mistake? 7 years of mistakes. But now I'm correcting them. That evening my mother-in-law called. Her voice was shrill with rage. Catherine, what are you doing? My son is being dragged to the police because of you. Patricia, I said calmly, your son took out a loan in my name by forging my signature. That's a federal crime. What crime? He was trying to help the family. Helping the family by stealing from his wife and gambling away money at casinos. A pause. What casino? You're delusional. I have evidence. Screenshots from his account. almost $50,000 in 1 year. My mother-in-law was silent. Apparently, she didn't know about that. And one more thing, I continued. Tomorrow a report is going to the Social Security Administration for an investigation of your disability, the one that's allowed you to receive enhanced benefits. Even though you can easily carry 40-pound bags and drive a car. The silence on the line became deafening. You wouldn't dare. I already have. The documents are ready, and I have video of you unloading your trunk. This is blackmail. No, Patricia, this is justice. You drained money from me for 7 years, called me stupid behind my back, wanted to find your son a normal wife. I know everything. I have recordings of your conversations. My mother-in-law was breathing heavily. Catherine, let's talk. Meet me. We can discuss this. We have nothing to discuss. Goodbye. I hung up. My hands are trembling slightly, but my soul felt light. For the first time in 7 years, light. The following weeks turned into a series of court hearings, interrogations, and proceedings. Eric was questioned 3 times. He tried to deny everything, but the evidence was irrefutable. The analysis confirmed the forged signature. The bank provided camera footage showing Eric receiving money using my power of attorney, the one I'd signed without looking when we sold the car. I didn't know it was illegal, he shouted during questioning. I thought since we're married it was okay. Detective Peterson looked at him without emotion. Forging a signature is a crime regardless of marital status. You forged your wife's signature and obtained money with it. That's fraud. Eric was charged with 2 counts, identity theft and wire fraud, released on his own recognizance. Simultaneously, the mortgage fraud case proceeded. The bank, receiving the tip from my lawyer, conducted an investigation and discovered discrepancies in the documents. It turned out Patricia had listed an understated assessed value of the house and concealed information about her utility payment debts. The loan was denied. Moreover, the bank filed a fraud report. Then came the Social Security Administration investigation. Patricia was called for medical re-examination. She tried to act sick, complained about her back, could barely walk. But the doctors were experienced. They ordered tests. The results showed no disability. Her spine was normal for her age. No mobility restrictions. The Social Security Administration filed fraud charges. Over 5 years, Patricia had illegally received more than $80,000. That was major fraud, up to 20 years in federal prison. The divorce trial took place 6 weeks after filing. I sat next to Victoria and looked at Eric. He deteriorated badly, lost weight, looked haggard. Next to him sat some lawyer, obviously cheap. All rise. Court is in session. The judge, a woman in her 50s, opened the proceedings. Hearing the case for dissolution of marriage between Catherine and Eric Melnikov. Petitioner also requests division of marital property. A long hearing began. Eric's lawyer tried to prove the apartment was joint property and should be split 50-50. Victoria methodically dismantled his arguments. Your Honor, we present evidence that the down payment for the apartment, $30,000, was paid from petitioner's personal premarital savings. Here's a statement from her account opened 3 years before the marriage. Here's the payment authorization for the down payment. The judge examined the documents. Continue. Furthermore, all mortgage payments, over $200,000 over 7 years, were made exclusively by the petitioner. Here are the loan statements. Every payment from her salary account. The respondent didn't make a single payment during the entire marriage. That's not true. Eric jumped up. I contributed too. How can you confirm that? The judge asked. Eric hesitated. Well, I helped around the house. Documentary confirmation? No, but... Sufficient. Continue, the judge said to my lawyer. Moreover, Victoria continued, we present evidence that the respondent systematically spent family funds on gambling without the petitioner's knowledge. Over the last year, gambling losses totaled approximately $50,000. This money was withdrawn from the joint family account. She placed statements and screenshots on the table. According to state family law, the court may deviate from equal division if one spouse spent joint assets to the detriment of family interests. We ask the court to consider this circumstance. The judge studied the documents for a long time, then looked at Eric. Respondent, do you acknowledge gambling? Eric was silent. His lawyer whispered something in his ear. It was a temporary thing, he finally squeezed out. I was going to win it back. I see, said the judge. Anything else to add? Victoria nodded. Yes, Your Honor. We also present evidence of spousal infidelity. She placed photographs on the table, the ones I'd taken at the cafe. The photos showed Eric with another woman. The photographs show the respondent with another woman. The images are dated last month. Eric went pale. That's not what you think. We ask the court to consider the circumstance as well when making its decision. The judge called a recess. After the recess, she read the decision. The marriage is dissolved. The apartment is recognized as the separate property of petitioner Catherine Melnikov. The court has considered that the down payment was made from her premarital funds. All mortgage payments were made by her alone, and the respondent spent family funds on gambling. Respondent is ordered to vacate the premises within 14 days. Eric looked at me with hatred, but I didn't look away. After court, he approached me outside. Satisfied, he hissed. You destroyed me. You destroyed yourself, Eric. I just helped the truth come out. What truth? I loved you. Loved. I smirked. You called me stupid in messages to your mistress. Planned to squeeze everything you could out of me and leave. That's love. He was silent. You know what's funniest? I continued. If you'd just asked for money for your mom's car, I probably would have given it. I gave for so many years, but you decided to steal, to forge my signature, to deceive, and now you're surprised I didn't tolerate it. Eric turned away. You're finished, he said hoarsely. Mom won't forgive you. Your mom has her own problems right now. She has her own criminal case. I turned and walked to my car. 3 months later, the criminal trials took place. Eric was tried for identity theft and fraud. He pled guilty. His lawyer convinced him it would be easier that way. The court considered his lack of prior record and gave him 3 years probation with a 2-year supervised release. But that wasn't all. The loan he'd taken in my name hadn't gone anywhere. The bank demanded repayment. Since I'd proven the signature was forged, the loan was transferred to Eric. $300,000 plus interest. All of it hung on him. And then there were the debts to friends. Those $40,000 he'd borrowed. When rumors of his troubles spread through town, the creditors stirred. One after another, they filed lawsuits. By year's end, Eric owed nearly $1 million. Patricia was tried for disability fraud. She tried to win the judge's sympathy, cried, complained about her health, said she'd been falsely accused. But the evidence was ironclad. Medical documents, doctors' testimony, video of her carrying heavy items. The verdict: 2 years in a federal prison camp, plus an obligation to return the illegally obtained money, over $80,000. And then there was her house, the same house she'd transferred to her son to take out a loan. When it emerged that she had obligations to the government, federal marshals placed a lien on the property. The house went to auction, sold for $350,000. The money went to pay off debts. Patricia ended up without a house and went to prison. Laura, that young mistress, disappeared immediately after learning about Eric's problems. Turned out she was only dating him because he'd promised her the good life. When it became clear he had no money, no apartment, no prospects, she instantly lost interest. I last saw her on social media. She was posting photos with some businessman on vacation. 6 months passed. I sat in my apartment, the one I'd fought so hard for. Drinking coffee, looking out the window at the snowy courtyard. Life had settled down. At work, I got promoted. Now, I'm the chief accountant. My salary almost doubled. Catherine, my boss, Mr. Anderson, said, "You're the best specialist in the company. Glad you're with us." I rented out grandmother's apartment. Small but stable income. I never got back the money Eric had stolen, but it didn't matter anymore. I'd learned to earn my own living and not depend on anyone. Sometimes I thought about how things could have been different. If I'd left earlier, if I hadn't endured for 7 years, if I'd immediately seen who Eric really was. But you can't change the past. You can only learn lessons. And I learned. Never again will I let anyone use me. I won't close my eyes to the obvious. Won't endure humiliation for the sake of preserving a family that doesn't really exist. The doorbell rang. I opened it and saw Eric. He was pitiful, thin, unshaven, in a worn jacket, eyes dull, shoulders slumped. "Katie," he said hoarsely, "can I come in?" "Why?" "To talk. Please." I hesitated, then stepped aside, letting him into the hallway. He stood there, not daring to go further. He looked around the apartment, our former apartment, which was now only mine. "Nice here," he said quietly. "Cozy. What do you want, Eric?" He swallowed. "Katie, I've lost everything. Mom's in prison. The house was sold. I have nothing. I've been crashing with friends for a month. Nobody will take me anymore. Can't get a job, probation. Even though it's supervised release, they still check. And take me back. Please. I'll change. I understand everything now. I'll work, pay the debts. Katie, you know me. I'm not a bad person. I just got confused." I looked at him silently. Once I'd loved this man. Once I'd believed his every word. Once I dreamed of a future together. But that was long ago, in another life. "You know, Eric," I finally said, "when you took out that loan in my name, you were certain I'd tolerate it forever, that I was a stupid chicken who understands nothing. You called me stupid, planned to leave as soon as something better came along." He lowered his eyes. "I was wrong." "Yes, you were. But it's not about that. It's that for 7 years you lived at my expense, ate my food, lived in my apartment, spent my money, and thought it was normal that it should be that way. Katie, I'm an accountant, Eric. I know how to count, and I've counted how much those 7 years with you cost me. In money, over $200,000. In nerves and health, can't be measured. In lost opportunities, also can't be measured. I walked to the door and opened it. Now it's your turn to pay your debts. Get a job, pay what you owe. Build your life anew. But without me. Eric looked at me for several seconds. Something flashed in his eyes. Hope, then despair. Katie, please. Goodbye, Eric. He slowly left. I closed the door, stood leaning against it, breathed deeply. No regret, no pity, only relief. This chapter of my life was closed finally and irrevocably. I returned to the window. Outside, snow was falling, large, fluffy flakes. Beautiful. My phone vibrated. A message from Marina. Katie, you coming to the office party tonight? By the way, the new CFO will be there. They say he's interesting. I smiled and typed a response. I'm coming. But don't matchmake me, I'm not ready yet. Got it. But looking never hurt anyone. Looking, maybe. Someday. Later. For now, I have myself, my apartment, my job, my new life. And that's more than I had all those 7 years. Much more. Through the window, I watched Eric leaving the building. Hunched over, pitiful. He raised his collar and trudged off into nowhere. I turned away from the window. In the kitchen, the kettle was boiling. The evening was just beginning. And for the first time in a long time, I knew for certain tomorrow would be better than yesterday. Because now my life depends only on me. And I won't let anyone change that ever again. Thank you for reading to the end. If you found this story interesting, subscribe to the channel, and leave a like so you don't miss new videos.